Hi, everybody. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes for everybody to get online. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar for Bacon Unlimited, Why Vulnerability Remediation Efforts Fail and How to Fix Them. Today's agenda, we'll go through intros in a second, why remediation efforts fail, obviously, the impact of slow remediation, how to fix the process, and then a live demo. So it's about half and half. I'm going to try to keep the slides brief, but we do have a couple of polls or a few polls in there. I would like to get some feedback from you. And then at the end, we'd ask that you fill out our survey. So Dave, why don't we jump into it and do intros here? My name is John Marcato. I'm co-founder and CTO at Bacon, and joining me is Dave Adekoya, senior engineer at Bacon Unlimited. Dave, thanks for joining me today for this demo.
As always, happy to be here.
Awesome. We'll kind of just go through some quick housekeeping. If you haven't used the GoToWebinar before, you can ask questions in there. You'll see there's some little tabs to drop down from the little sidebar it gives you. We will be launching some polls, so don't be surprised when those pop up, and just answer them quickly, and we'll get through those speedily. And then at the end, as I mentioned, fill out our survey. We would really, really appreciate it. See how you liked it and what you'd like to see us do next time. With that, why don't we kind of jump right into it here, Dave? I guess I probably should have mentioned too, if you want to learn more about Bacon that we don't cover today, you can go to YouTube and go to and just search for Bacon Unlimited. You'll find our 100 and some odd videos about Bacon. You can see little nice snippets there. And that can be really, really helpful, I think, for figuring things out. I think what we want to do here is talk a little bit about sort of what the problem is and some of the data that you're going to find here. So first and foremost, the security risks, right? 60% of breaches stem from unpatched vulnerabilities. It's an average of 20 days for people to actually fix vulnerabilities, and the cost of data breaches is really, really high. So we want to deal with that, and we want to be thinking about how do we make remediations for vulnerabilities easy? How do we automate that problem away? It's chewing up a lot of time for a lot of people, and it's a really, really important thing not to sort of ignore. So we're going to sort of see how you guys are doing that. So we're going to throw up our first poll. Lane, if you wouldn't mind launching that poll. All right. How long does it typically take you to remediate vulnerabilities? Less than a week would be exceptional. 1 to 4 weeks, 1 to 3 months, more than 3 months. We find a lot of people with those later numbers. So go ahead and throw in yours, and we'll watch them sort of live calculate here. 1 to 4 weeks looks like a very popular answer so far. And we'll just see how long. We've got 50% of the people have voted. So we'll just see, we'll time out eventually, but the quicker we go, the quicker it pops up. And there we go. All right, so 1 to 4 weeks is really the winner all the way around. Only half the people voted, but you know what? Everybody had the same answer. So 1 to 4 weeks is not the worst I've seen, but 3 weeks into a vulnerability, if it's an active one, that could be, you know, pretty bad. So moving along, we will continue to kind of talk about what the issue is here. And the big thing I think that we need to, I think you can clear that poll. There we go. And give us the next slide there, Dave. The Looks like we're having a little delay on the platform. There you go. Why remediation efforts fail? Well, too many vulnerabilities, not enough time. I think that's a story as old as vulnerabilities are. It's a very manual process for a lot of these steps often. And patching, you know, isn't the only thing that we're dealing with anymore, right? We're dealing with patching, we're dealing with third-party software upgrading, which is technically patching, but not exactly the same kind of patching. And then we're dealing with configuration changes, right? So some vulnerabilities, in fact, some of the worst ones, it is a much smaller list, but they can only be fixed when they first come out by making changes, you know, in the Windows registry or to a config file, Linux or Mac or something like that. Bacon's going to give you the ability to do all of those things. And vulnerabilities are a wider problem, right? We could talk about network things and things like that. But that's not the purview of Bacon. There are ways of dealing with, you know, switch firmware and firewalls and time clocks and other things. But the really soft underbelly of most networks is endpoints. So servers, workstations, laptops, and phones. And we want to really make sure that those things are ubiquitous, and we really need to make sure that those are secured. And that's really the focus of Bacon. So compliance burdens, you know, they make it more complex. And we really, really want to make sure that we're sort of overcoming that. So we have another poll on that real quick. So we'll just pop another poll. I usually don't like to do this many, but we're trying to get a sense from people where they're at. So go ahead, Lane, and launch that next poll. What's your biggest challenge essentially in vulnerability remediation? Is it, you know, I probably should have done a multi-choice on this one, but we'll see what people think is sort of the most troubling part. Too many vulnerabilities, not enough time. Manual processes slow us down. Patching alone is not enough. Compliance burdens make it complex, or is it lack of visibility into what's already fixed and not fixed? So we're seeing a mixture here of too many vulnerabilities and then the manual process. It seems to be the two popular ones so far. So we'll wait for the time to expire there. We got 60% of people voted. All right, up from the last one. That's good. And there we go. Okay, so it's really the manual nature of things and just too many and not enough time. And that's going to be addressed very, very effectively in Bacon, since we're going to see all those vulnerabilities and we're going to let you remediate them with either automation or very, very what I call sort of partial automation, where you can do things with just a few clicks across lots and lots of endpoints. So that can be sort of really, really huge. And that's what we aim to do. So the business impact of poor remediation is kind of obvious. It's sort of, we sort of talked about it a little already. Security breaches from delayed remediation are terrible. You can be fined. You can have reputational damage. That's the one actually that seems to be one of the worst. And the increased operational costs of sort of dealing with those things whenever you have some sort of internal problem, and now you've got to get all kinds of extra auditing and way more looking at things, and C-level and people are all over you all the time over it. So that's it. And I think the last poll is coming up here. So Lane, why don't we launch that last poll? We'll get through these and then we'll get to the demo. All right, how confident are you in your current vulnerability management process? All right, this is a question of confidence, and this is mostly people in America that are on this webinar. So we're apparently #1 in confidence. We'll see how we feel about vulnerabilities, though. Not very good from what I'm seeing out there. With 20% voted, we have 100% not confident at all. So that is understandable. All right, we got somebody who's very confident. They want it. They don't like it. They don't like having it swayed so far in one direction. So, all right, now we've got half and half. So that's funny. All right, now we get some people in the middle. It's getting varied
Just
up
need
here.
one more. Have a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, nobody came in with the second one. So we've got one or two very confident people, or I guess more than that, it looks like. It got filled in a little bit there. So we've got a lot of people that are not so confident, and that's understandable. If you've got a way of doing this already, that's great. If you're already a Bacon customer, then you're probably in that first column, at least as far as endpoints go, and that's good news. So, all right, thanks for answering those polls. Let's kind of move towards the end of the slides here. What works instead? Pretty obvious, right? Prioritize the right fixes. One of the things Bacon's going to do is give you the priorities, not just in terms of the ratings of the vulnerabilities themselves. We do have all of that data. You can analyze it in great detail from the National Vulnerabilities Database or from NIST if you do use our NIST plugin and or you're using NIST. Did I say NIST? I'm sorry, from the National Vulnerabilities Database, which is from NIST, or using Tenable, which we have a plugin for if you're using Tenable. And Tenable is a great tool for collecting information on vulnerabilities and on your machines, but it doesn't fix anything. So we do the fixes for them, and we also do fixes from our own scanning from the National Vulnerabilities Database and from the KEV list, which is supported by CISA. And so that is a really important function. That, if you don't know what that list is, the KEV list is telling you what the currently exploited vulnerabilities are out in the wild. So if your vulnerabilities match up with that, we're going to tell you about that. And those are the ones you want to deal with right away. Do not go to lunch, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Fix that issue on your machines right now, because that is your most likely entryway as far as vulnerabilities go for a bad situation. So we're going to show you that. It's a nice little red dot next to all the vulnerabilities that have that. You can see exactly how many machines you have. You can quickly patch those right now. You can get approval from change management boards and CEOs and CFOs and CTOs and CIOs as quickly as possible and get those patches out there, get people's machines rebooted to finish those. Bacon can do all of the heavy lifting for you there, but of course you have to go through your business process as well. You can automate a lot of these things. So if you're staying ahead of patching and things like that, you may not ever have any things that are on the vulnerability list. That's what we hope for you, but that KEV list is pretty nasty. And even ones that just have high severity, those can be concerning too, because the day they make it on the KEV list, you might have a lot of exposed endpoints. The risk might be very aggressive, could be very negative for your business. And then the last thing is continuous monitoring. So one of the great things about being salt-based, if you know that about Bacon, we have salt under the hood. It's the most powerful remote configuration management platform library that exists out there, and we've integrated it into our tool since the beginning, is that it can keep track of things. In other words, it keeps systems stateful, so you can know if you've made a change. The one I'd like to use as an example is a registry setting for something called remote execution on Windows. If you change it, well, it's not impossible for someone with admin rights to change it back. So you might have think you've solved that issue, a month ago, and it can come back on you, and that is not a good thing. So we want to make sure that we're watching for the old issues, that we're watching for those configurations. We can even put in automation to continue to fix it were it to pop back up, and also tell you about that in the monitoring section of Bacon, so you can go and find out who's doing that and take their computer away from them. So those are all really important sort of points about vulnerabilities. I want to show you how it works. So Dave's going to do that. I think we've got one more slide here that just kind of talks about what Bacon is in general. If you aren't familiar with us, we are a full endpoint management suite for Mac, Windows, Linux, and iOS devices. That means wherever your machines are in the world, we can fully manage them. We've got one-to-one support, so built-in remote control over a nice HTML5 WebSockets based remoting tool. We've got the ability to do patching, third-party patching, software deployment in really, really easy ways. Everything is real time. All of our data is up to date in real time. We've got full monitoring and visibility into the software and physical inventory of all the systems. So it's a very complete endpoint management system. And the cherry on top is the vulnerability management, which uses a lot of those other parts to get things done, but really streamlines it through the view of vulnerability management and remediation. So that's kind of the big concept in on the whole. Dave, I'll pass it to you to give a demo of how the whole thing works.
Excellent. All right. So what we'll switch over to our lab environment here. And what I'm going to do is walk through the different kind of scenarios that kind of map to what we've been talking about. So in this demo, I'm going to show you how to prioritize vulnerabilities based on active threats. We'll see how to figure out like which machines need our attention, which vulnerabilities are the scariest, the spiciest, whatever kind of word you want to use there. Then we'll find out how to deploy remediation across our environment. And then next, just make sure that we're actually done, right? Let's verify that everything has actually been updated and patched and can generate some reports based off of that. So to start off with here, I'm going to go over to my nav bar on the left and go to vulnerabilities. And here we have two options. As John said, we do integrate very well with Tenable. So we do have Tenable down here with compliance, and then our agent natively has CVE detection capabilities by checking NIST, as John said. So we have CVE and compliance. I'm going to start with the CVE side. And what you're able to see here is the actual CVE itself. So if you know which one you're looking for, you can look that up here. Pretty simple. Otherwise, you can go by software, number of endpoints even, or just what it is description-wise. All these fields can be searched for in this top little search bar here. So you can even see here, I sometimes go through and find specific ones to pick on some of our VMs here. But basically what you're able to do here is kind of at a glance, figure out how severe these issues are and start working even just top to bottom on this list. So one thing to note with Bacon, it's not super obvious, but all these tables we're seeing are easily exportable. So if you prefer to work out some of the product, you want to start making some reports, pivot tables, you name it, you're able to do that. Otherwise, what I do is I go through severity here and also CISA exploited. So this is a field that'll show you if this has actually been found in the wild. I want to start with these ones, right? These are not just a hypothetical, maybe we could if we just had blank. These are, no, they did because they just had blank. So we want to make sure we get these ones first. And again, we have the severities here. And of course, if we have a remediation for it. 9 times out of 10, as we all know, this is going to be something of you have to update the thing, you've got to patch the thing, be it OS, software, you name it, and that's super simple to do. So let's see, if I had this one for Google Chrome, easy one to pick on since it's a browser, what I'm able to do here is see which machines have this vulnerability. You can see that by endpoints here. This is a cross-platform feature, so of course we have devices, that would show you like mobiles and stuff like that, or if it maps on things that Tenable's found, we can kind of cross-reference the data there. Now, what I want to do is I want to get some more information about this. This is great, but maybe I want to see where those sources are from or what it's really detecting. If I go to this link right here, this is going to take me over to NIST.gov. And so here we can go through and figure out what this is, what their scoring methodology is, and of course, some sources for more information. Also along with what they're using to detect it. This is Chrome, so they're really just trying to map to specific versions of Chrome and OS. Pretty simple stuff there. I'm going to go back here, back to my table. That's kind of the very first thing is just figuring out what we have to do. If you see down here, we have over 5,000 items. That's a lot of work we have to get done. What I typically do then is I start to prioritize. So I have two options. I have CVE, again, this kind of is a return, where we can see how patched my environment is for specific CVEs. Again, remember, you can search through here, super simple. So you can target those really scary ones and very easily just figure out, are we fully green or not, right? This can be that simple. And so you can sort by how many have been resolved, all that kind of good stuff here. I think you get the idea. Now, what I also do is I go by endpoints. It's not just CVE. Some of our endpoints are going to be more vulnerable than others. I'm less worried about my lab machines and my internal network than I am our services on the web, right? So this is how you can go through and find out those vulnerable machines and how patched up they are. So here, my beta endpoint for Windows 11 is kind of almost there. We got a lot of stuff to work on here, but you can kind of get an idea of machines that need some attention just based on the name, right? So we can go through and find our web servers, all things touch the internet, all that kind of good stuff very easily and start working on those vulnerabilities. Now, the Tenable side is going to look very similar. Again, what we're going to look at here is now plugins. So rather than having CVEs, Tenable refers to them as plugins, but it's going to be very similar stuff here. You see, we've got a problem with Firefox. We have a very old version, so we've tripped every Firefox CVE they have, that kind of thing. And then much like we saw before, if I go to view link here, now it's going to pull up Tenable's data. And I'll be honest, I do really like how they break this down. It looks a lot simpler, right? It's kind of like a wiki article of what's the problem, let's describe it, how do we fix it. I literally scroll on the bottom and just go, do I have to update? You got it, updating, and we can move on. So I do like how streamlined this is. But again, Tenable is an amazing product for finding the vulnerabilities, but they don't fix them. That's what we're for. So what I can do is now I know what I actually want to fix. I can go over to what we call the remediator. Now I have a couple different options in here. I have patches, so this will push OS patches or invoke the package manager if it's a Linux-based system. We have configuration. This is going to change stuff like registry keys, config files, all the good stuff. It's not always enough to just patch your environment. Sometimes the configurations themselves are insecure or have been exploited, and we just need to turn things off, modify stuff for safer configurations, and that's where this comes in, which we'll see in a moment. Then we have package. This is going to be specifically for software. So again, the ancient version of Firefox, we can easily update that on the machines that need it, in this case 4. And it's also showing you that the vulnerabilities you found are on that sys exploited list. So we want to definitely get this one first if we're going to go for it. And lastly, we have actions. This is kind of a catch-all. So for all the things we couldn't fit into these 3 options, we have under actions. You'll see with Tenable too, they tend to list best practices as part of their plugin library. And so it might say something like, hey, by the way, you've got machines that have users that can't change their password, or you have really old accounts that haven't been deleted but not logged into. That's stuff that we can't necessarily automate for you, right? I might knock out a service account if I automate that, but you only need to use it once a year. So this is something that you can kind of use your context with the human brain side of things and figure out what you need to do. So to roll through here, let's look at what it looks like to actually fix these vulnerabilities. For this one, I'm going to use less. So I have a couple of CVEs detected for this, as you can see. And so all I have to do is go to actions and install. What that's going to do is if you're familiar with Bacon, you'll recognize this window. If not, this is our normal patching UI. So if you already know how to patch in Bacon without thinking of CVEs, we're bringing up something familiar. That way you can just jump in right away and get the job done. Instead of patching to make the list of patches go down, you're doing this specifically to protect your environment. So here, it'll show me the patch, the machines that need that patch, in this case, my Alma Linux machine. All I have to do is select it, and then I can push it out right away. What will happen is this patch will then get installed on the machine, the agent will report back, and if we were tracking this with our agent and not Tenable, it'll show up right away and say, all right, I'm done, I'll take it off the list. If it's using Tenable, then we'll have to wait for that application to scan, then we'll sync the data, and again, take it off the list. If I go to configuration, it's going to be very similar. So here we're using our states and profiles. This allows us to have very granular control over what we're modifying on a system. And this is something our team helps build out. So as these CVEs come in that are not as easy as just update this thing or update the OS, then we can actually go through here and actually set things up. So if I look at this fix of remote execution vulnerabilities, what we're able to do here is use the information from that NIST document and figure out what the most recommended fix is from the first party. In this case, Microsoft. I made this one, so I read through the guide. I figured out what they said we should do. And in this case, depending on your CPU architecture, that's what they want you to do. So I wrote the state. This is something that's provided to all of your Bacon servers. They just pull this down if it's relevant to your environment. And all you have to worry about is, take a peek, make sure you know what we're changing here, and that makes sense for your environment, so it's pretty safe. And then we just go to actions and apply. Now here, it's going to already select the machines that need this fix. In theory, I could select all of my Windows machines if this was safe to do so, but typically if they're going to be vulnerable to it, they'll already be selected here. So I can trust this and just move on. Then I have my application time. So now again, I'm pushing out a change. I can figure out if I want to have it go out a certain day and time. I can do run when connected if this is pushing out to workstations and they're offline. This will allow me to push it out. And then even if they're not online right this second, next time their machine checks into Bacon, let's say you turn it on and it's connected to the internet, they'll get this fix. Or I can even do a deadline. This is a fantastic feature where we're able to push out a change to the machine, and then it'll prompt the user saying, hey, you've got a change, and I need you to reboot sometime before whatever this deadline is. So let's say it's the 31st. They'll be able to get that change, schedule their own reboot, and if not, the machine will reboot for us on the 31st. That way, when I'm doing my reports for next month, all of my data is up to date, and I don't have to chase users around, talk to managers, all that kind of stuff we don't want to do as IT. So right here, all I'd have to do is apply immediately, and I'm good to go. And lastly, I think you see the pattern here. Package, same deal. In this case, I'd go through the same interface and I'm updating Firefox. So it really can be that simple. We just go through, find everything we need to do, and then go from there. Now, as far as validating or verifying that we've actually remedied the issues, that's super simple. So like I said earlier, if you're patching with Bacon, what will happen is you're going to remove those CVEs from this list. If I patch this core utils here, this one will just drop off and this number will, decrease by 1. Very simple. Same thing on the Tenable side. Again, once the Tenable scan runs, let's say if yours runs daily and then Bacon's checking in every day as well, or maybe hourly, even in case we do an on-demand scan, that's all the kind of stuff that'll make this update, and then it'll remove that CVE from your list. So again, super simple to do and super simple to keep up with. So John, that's mainly what I wanted to cover here. Are there any other features you want to go through if we have any extra time?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have 5 minutes left, so we'll leave the most of the remainder here for the survey. But I wanted to thank everybody for coming. We do have some awesome things coming in the future where you can make custom queries in here. There's a lot of additions being done, to these exact features. If you haven't seen 5.2 yet, the new 5.2 has some amazing fully automated patching with schedules and windows, and the ability to pre-approve patches and things like that. You can also automate third-party software upgrades and things like that. So if you're using Bacon and you want to use it to its full extent, you can save hundreds, even thousands of hours of labor time, and that's really the gist of it. So I think we'll end there, Dave, to give people a couple minutes here to fill the survey. Thank you all very, very much for coming. We really appreciate it, and see you next time.